Concern is mounting in Guyana as the Elections Commission fails to deliver results and counting is suspended in the capital. Former Vice President Joe Biden wins 9 out of 14 states in the U.S. Super Tuesday, but Sanders is expected to win California. Teachers, students and parents have taken to the streets of Andalusia, Spain, to reject an education decree approved by the local government. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Cristina Escobar. Former Vice President Joe Biden won in 9 states across the South and Midwest on Super Tuesday, while the Democratic frontrunner Bernie Sanders is expected to win the primary in California, the state offering the most delegates. Tuesday's results made it a 2-horse race between Sanders and Biden after Mike Bloomberg dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed the former vice president on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren seems to be dropping out as well after losing her own state. The Massachusetts senator said she's taking time to assess the path forward after she failed to win a single state in Tuesday primaries. Biden currently stands at 433, meanwhile Sanders is 388. In order to win the Democratic domination, a candidate must earn at least 1,991 delegates before the Democratic convention in June. Despite Joe Biden securing the lead on this Super Tuesday, Bernie Sanders has voiced full confidence in his chances of winning the Democratic nomination to challenge President Donald Trump.
We need is a new politics that brings working class people into our political movement, which brings young people into our political movement, and which in November will create the highest voter turnout in American political history. So I am excited about where we are. We have come a long, long way.
Former Vice President Joe Biden came from behind after losing in the first primaries and caucuses. Several of his running mates dropped out and decided to endorse him, including Mike Bloomberg and Pete Buttigieg. According to the latest results published in the U.S. media, Biden has a strong lead, although Sanders could also get a significant number of delegates. This is what Biden said after winning 9 states.
Good night. It's a good night. And the seats be getting even better.
And we continue with other news because a UN report on Colombia presented by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva on Wednesday documents that 108 killings of human rights defenders has occurred only in 2019. The report reveals that from 2016 to June 2019, Colombia was the country with the highest number of killings of human rights defenders in the Latin American region. It also points out that the risks have increased in the last 3 years, despite the 2016 signing of the peace accords between the Colombian state and former FARC guerrilla. Meanwhile, President Iván Duque's administration has questioned the report, claiming there were inaccuracies and that the recommendations made are an intrusion into the sovereignty of the country. Meanwhile, Colombian Interior Minister Alicia Arango turned on her critics, dismissing the claims of the systematic murder of social leaders. The minister believes that more people die in Colombia due to cell phone thefts than for defending human rights. Her statements came during a meeting on the protection of life held in Putumayo in southwest Colombia to address the situation of insecurity faced by social and union leaders throughout the country. And authorities continue to investigate the killing of social leaders Julio Gutiérrez Avilés, who, according to his relatives, was attacked by armed men when was heading back to his farm in Campo Alegre municipality, South Colombia. Gutiérrez was the president of Del Esmero Community Action Board. A recent investigation has brought to light a tape recording in which Colombian drug trafficker José Guillermo Hernández Aponte, a.k.a. Ñeñe, claimed to be at the center of an electoral fraud operation to benefit current President Iván Duque by order of former President and Senator Álvaro Uribe. The Attorney General of Colombia discovered the tape during an investigation related to a murder allegedly perpetrated by Guillermo Hernández. The drug trafficker died in 2019, and Uribe was the first in Colombia to denounce his alleged killing. The proof of electoral fraud was discovered among thousands of calls intercepted at the request of the Attorney General's office on investigating the homicide, but none of it has been used to initiate proceedings regarding vote buying. At least 22 people have died due to heavy rains in the southeast region of Brazil. The rainfall began on Tuesday night and has affected the southern state of Sao Paulo, where 17 deaths have been reported and more than 40 people are missing. Several highways are currently blocked in the municipalities of Santos, San Vicente and Guaraju. Basic services were disrupted due to floods and landslides. Meanwhile, in Rio de Janeiro, 5 deaths and countless material damages have been reported. Local authorities in both states are coordinating the necessary resources to deal with the emergency.
2 firefighters died. One of them told us, "Are you sure there's nobody up there?" We say, "There was nobody. The only people that were there were a woman and a kid, but they have already left." They said, "Are you sure?" We said yes. Then he said they will go up to check if everything is okay. And these 2 firefighters went up there with another guy. Whatever, when they got there, everything collapsed. When I saw it, I ran to my house. Thanks to God, I had the time to take my 3-year-old daughter and my wife. But my other daughter died. She was covered by the landslide.
A gente sabe que aqui
there is no way to live in this place again. Let's see what will happen to this family that have lost their house. I do not know what to say. It is not easy. We do not know what to do.
Famílias que já perderam suas casas, né? Mas
Chile's National Emergency Office reported that a forest fire has hit the communities of Molina and Maule. According to an update released by the National Forest Corporation of Chile, the fire remains active and has consumed over 12,000 hectares. The fire started on February 9th in Maule, 200 kilometers south of Santiago de Chile. Around 36 brigades and 31 planes from the Chilean Army, Navy and firefighters are continuing efforts to contain the wildfire. On the 60th anniversary of the explosion of the French freighter La Coubre in the port of Havana, details of this U.S. terrorist act against Cuba are yet to be clarified. The explosion caused more than 100 deaths and injured over 200. The blast occurred as the freight fighter was unloading 76 tons of grenade and ammunition. This act of sabotage caused considerable material damages and also deprived Cuba of crucial defense resources. Evidence accumulated surrounding the circumstances in which the French ship exploded has pointed to U.S. responsibility for the blast. In the early years of the Cuban Revolution, U.S. intelligence agencies under the Dwight Eisenhower administration closely followed the military strengthening of Cuban defense and pressured European nations to suspend the sale of arms to Havana. And coming up, we have an update of the elections in Guyana, where the results have been delayed. Don't go away. Welcome back. Guyana's Elections Commission has still not announced the results of Monday's general elections. 2 days after the vote, people are still waiting to find out which of the 2 main coalitions will form the next government. 6 of the country's 10 districts have made their declarations, but counting was halted for a time in the 2 biggest districts and remains suspended in District 4, which includes the capital, Georgetown. Citizens across Guyana are becoming anxious as they await the final declaration of the results. The Commission has so far only announced results for 418 out of 2,339 polling stations. The delay has resulted in a flurry of rumors and rising tensions.
That we have received statements of polls from, as indicated, we will now
And representatives of the Guyana private sector also expressed their views on these elections.
Go ahead.
The elections were properly run. GCOM staff was well trained, but now we're in this last lap of the tabulation system, and the GCOM have now gone to a back room. There are people in the back room that is now doing the tabulation process in the absence of any observers or party agents, and then they're bringing it to the front for a verification process, which is in total violation. And then you have a regional officer in Region 6. They finish the tabulation and she's refusing to release the results, which is against the law. And these are unfortunate things that is happening at the last minute, at the last leg of the elections. At the last leg of the elections that was properly run. These elections were properly run, everything went well, and now we're having this. Is very disappointing.
And let me begin by saying thank you for being here. And I am a Guyanese. I'm risen to take the floor because I think this is an appropriate opportunity to point out that our mission is now reliably informed that the count in Region 4 has stopped and that the returning officer is no longer in place. I make this point to make one other point. We ask you and all of the international observer missions to remain in Guyana and to remain engaged until the count is completed and that GCOM declares the final result. Thank you. Know each other.
And the Carter Center's Election Observation Mission to Guyana also held a press conference, and its observers gave its statements preliminary results of what they saw in these elections, which its result hasn't been announced yet. Let's listen.
In some areas, particularly Region 4, the Carter Center observed the presence of campaigning and campaign material within 200 yards limit of polling stations. In addition, observers of the Carter Center noted the presence of information desks operated by the 2 major political parties in Region 4, 7, 9, and 10, particularly in Georgetown. The Carter Center heard some complaint in Georgetown regarding the presence of the stand within 200 yards of polling station.
China's National Health Commission reported 38 coronavirus deaths on Wednesday, but a fall in new cases for a third consecutive day. An official stated that China has now an excess capacity in terms of protective suits, and it's urging its manufacturers to meet demands for the suits overseas. Among the main control measures adopted by the Chinese authorities are constant temperature checks, a no mask, no service policy, and high-tech people tracking. The COVID-19 virus emerged late last year in China and has infected more than 80,000 people and killed nearly 3,000 in the country, but the spread of the epidemic has slowed markedly in recent weeks. Meanwhile, concerns surrounding COVID-19 are rising in the Latin American region, where 3 more cases were confirmed in Ecuador on Wednesday, taking the total number there to 10. Likewise, Argentina and Chile both confirmed their first cases of the novel coronavirus on Tuesday in patients who recently returned from abroad. Argentinian Health Minister Ginés González García reported that the patient has been kept in isolation since presenting himself to a private health clinic in Buenos Aires the day he returned to the country. The total number of confirmed cases in Latin America is now 21. The Italian government could soon close all schools, universities and other education institutions until mid-March in response to the coronavirus outbreak. The closure will reportedly take effect from Thursday and will last until mid-March at the earliest, depending on the spread of the COVID-19 virus in the country, according to local reports. The move would make Italy the first country to take such a measure outside of Asia. Italy is the worst affected European country, where the coronavirus death toll has risen to 107. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases outside of China has now surpassed 10,000 across 72 countries, reporting 166 deaths, according to statistics from the World Health Organization released on Wednesday. And after the break, teachers and students have taken to the streets in Andalusia, Spain. Don't go away. Welcome back. Several unions and parents' associations are holding a strike in Andalusia on Wednesday to reject an education decree approved by the local government. Over 100,000 teachers, parents and students joined the strike convened by the Andalusian Platform for Public Schooling. The strike takes place 3 days after the start of the enrollment process for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year in an effort to protect public education. According to the Union Confederation of Workers' Commissions, the decree promotes the liberalization and privatization of public education services by the Andalusian government. And Andalusian police reported the participation of 2,000 demonstrators in the March for Education this Wednesday. Our correspondent in Spain, Sergio Rodrigo, brings us more details.
Muy buena, pues efectivamente, jornada de protesta en el sur de España.
Greetings. Yes, I reported today saw a day of protest in the south of Spain. Andalusian communities today joined a general strike of the education community. Teachers, parents have joined students in the protest against a decree by the regional government of Andalusia, a government formed by an alliance of the right-wing People Parties and Citizens Party, and backed by the far-right Vox Party. The Green Tide, as the protests are known, as well as public education unions, have taken to the streets. It should be recorded that does represent the largest number of teachers at the level state. More than 102,000 public education teachers are in the streets of Andalusia today to say no to a decree that insists on a favors private education over public education. They insist that the measure has not been agreed with trade unions, which have also taken to the streets. And here again, the day has been green as teachers have joined to the Green Tide to say no to the privatization of the education sector in the south of Spain, home to more than 9 million people.
The Russian Ministry of Defense stated that Turkey has violated the Sochi Agreement signed in 2018 by continuing to support and arm terrorist groups in the Syrian province of Idlib. Chief spokesman for the Ministry of Defense, Igor Konashenkov, stressed that Western countries and the United Nations have not been concerned by the serious violation of the Sochi Memorandum on Idlib committed by Turkey and terrorist groups operating in Syria. Konashenkov denounced the increase in bombardments against neighborhoods and the Russian base of Hmeimim by the extremists. The Russian official also stressed that the installation of observation points by the Turkish army has been strengthened. Thousands of migrants continued to pour into Turkey's northwestern border province of Edirne to try to enter the European Union on Tuesday. Coming from diverse locations across the country, migrants are arriving in Edirne, which has 5 border gates with both Greece and Bulgaria. According to Turkey's Interior Ministry, over 100,000 migrants crossed into Europe from the country's northwestern borders as of Tuesday. Due to the growing numbers, local police have imposed temporary restrictions on movement in the border area for security reasons. The U.S. military conducted an airstrike against Taliban fighters in Afghanistan on Wednesday, just hours after President Donald Trump said he held a very good talk with the Taliban leader. The U.S. signed a deal with the Taliban on Saturday aimed at bringing peace to Afghanistan after years of war. However, a U.S. military spokesman in Afghanistan, Colonel Sonny Leggett, reported that the attack was in response to insurgent actions against the security forces of the country. Hours earlier, President Donald Trump noted a positive conversation with Taliban leader Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar. On March 1st, the Special Representative for the Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, and the co-founder of the Taliban movement, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, signed an agreement on the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and the beginning of the peace process in the country. South African trade unions have threatened to go on strike if the government fails to honor a wage agreement signed in 2018. According to the agreement, civil servants are supposed to receive a 7% wage increase effective on April 1st, 2020. However, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has said the deal needs to be renegotiated. He's arguing that the deal goes against his plan to reduce the public sector wage bill by $10 billion over the next 3 years. Unions, however, insist that they have no intention to reopen negotiations on matters that were settled 2 years ago. Togo's Constitutional Court rejected opposition claims of electoral fraud on Tuesday and declared Faure Gnassingbé the winner of the recent presidential election with more than 70% of the vote. The incumbent president was elected for a 4th term. Opposition leader and former Prime Minister Abgejome Kotjo took 19% of the vote, according to the court. A petition filed by Kotjo, who heads the movement of Patriot for Democracy and Development, was annulled by the court, which found it lacked evidence likely to support the allegations. President Gnassingbé insisted his continuing rule for 5 more years was central to ensuring security in Togo and preventing jihadist violence spilling over from Burkina Faso to the north of the country. Now we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Cristina Escobar. Thank you for watching.